Trading psychology, master your mind, make money. Welcome to class number 1, trading blind spots and why they matter. And this class will be very pivotal because it's going to serve as our foundation for all future classes, because I promise you, you're going to have those moments where, no, I would never do that. Or, oh, that makes sense on why I struggled with that, or why I did something so stupid, because the mind is a very crazy place. And the reason why trading psychology is so difficult is because, well, in many ways, things are natural, what we're doing. And that word will come up multiple times here in the class and make sense by the end. So let's start to learn about our minds, and that way we can be better prepared to be great investors, great traders. So let's go to my desktop and begin the learning. So here we are, trading blind spots and why they matter. Let's get right into it. So what matters the most in trading? Maybe somebody would say your computer setup. Maybe somebody would say, well, it's all about those technical patterns. It's all about, candlesticks, support, resistances. Maybe you would say that. Maybe some people would say, no, Clay, your emotions matter the most. Okay, fair enough. Now, this was somewhat a trick question because all three do matter, but one area that is often overlooked is twofold. Our thoughts, but not only that, how we think. So it's kind of circular logic. How we think is going to generate our thoughts, but thoughts can also influence how we think. So like I said, a little bit of circular logic there, but let's think about it. A thought is going to potentially trigger emotions, right? That's what happens. You can't have an emotion without some sort of thought. If you think something is scary, well then what are you going to do? You're going to have an emotion of fear, right? Nothing complicated there, so they work hand in hand. And what you got to realize then is, okay, well, this is going to influence how we think. So you have a thought, that's going to trigger some sort of emotion. The emotion is going to bleed into how we start to think. And then that's going to turn into what potentially ignites the already triggered emotion, which can be a very, very bad thing. So yes, once again, I realize there is some circular logic, but that is how it all works, is thoughts, how we think, emotions, they all do work hand in hand, because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. That's what our consciousness is doing constantly. Now, this is an overlooked area, and oftentimes, whether you want to admit it or not, whether you knowingly are doing it or unknowingly doing it, it doesn't really matter, because if you're overlooking something, then by default, you have a blind spot. And this is important because when it comes to these sorts of other dynamics, those trading setups, your knowledge of technical analysis and cash flow statements and all those other things, they literally become worthless if you have a blind spot in regards to this topic. What is worthless? Well, having no real value or use. And I get it. It's awesome to be able to post those pictures on Instagram or on any other social media of your awesome computer setup. Or it's cool to, be able to use language such as, oh, I noticed this hammer candle, what was happening at a support, and then the Bollinger Bands. Yeah, you can sound all smart with that sort of stuff. And again, they all are important, but if you have a blind spot, then at the core, they become worthless. So we got to dig more into this and think about, okay, thoughts, how we think, they're interacting. We have that baseline there. But okay, well, these things are all natural and biological benefits. So again, I'm not saying any of this at this point, there's anything wrong. No, we need to have thoughts, right? If we see a lion, we need to have some sort of thought of fear, which is going to teach us how to think. And it's going to basically at the core be like, we got to get out of here because that is a lion. That lion looks hungry. I need to get out of here because, well, you want to live, right? I state the obvious there. But my point here is that all of these up until this point, they're natural. They are biological benefits. Biological benefit being defined as they keep us alive. However, in the trading world, they actually become limitations. And this is why we must become aware of them. This is why I'm excited that you are still watching right now, because it shows that you have a very deep interest, as you should, as somebody that is pursuing having success in trading and investing. We got to be aware of these blind spots because yes, a lot of situations they're fine, but in trading and investing, they become those limitations. Now, I have a challenge for you. Spoiler, it's going to be impossible, but here's my challenge to you. For the next 60 seconds straight, quiet your mind, zero thoughts, pure nothingness. I'll give you a second right now to pause the video, but that's what I want you to do. Time yourself for the next 60 seconds and have a totally quiet mind with zero thoughts and pure nothingness. Go ahead and pause the video. Okay, so how did you do? My guess is 99.99% of you right there. That is what occurred to you. A total and utter failure, right? A quiet mind, nothing going on, pure nothingness. Yeah, you know what? Complete failure. And I say none of this in judgment because I failed right alongside you. Now, this actually reveals two critical pieces of data that we need to keep in mind going forward. And like I said at the introduction of this video, why this stuff matters, because we can always refer back to it. And as silly as we may behave as traders, as dumb as we may behave, as just irrational as we may behave, this is where things we got to refer back to. Now, the point of this experiment and this challenge was these two things are at the backbone. Thoughts are always with us. And as you just saw, we have very little control over them. Think about what you were trying to do. You were trying to control the fact of not having any thoughts. But I suppose you could say, as I say that out loud myself, that's almost impossible, because in order to tell yourself you have no thoughts, you need to think I have no thoughts. So maybe I literally just gave you, I don't know, could have like a Buddhist monk in the Himalayas, maybe they could pass that. But anyways, point here being, we always have thoughts and we have very little control over them. Now, thoughts, because they are always with us, they become, well, we become very used to them, right? That's hopefully, well, yes, of course, Clay, if we have something that's always with us, we're going to become used to that thing that is always with us. And then that, of course, gives us a heavy dependence on them. And because we have a heavy dependence on this thing that is always with us, we trust them as true reality. And because of that, there's going to be very little control over them, meaning we rarely evaluate or question our thoughts due to overall well-being. Meaning, you know what? Things are going okay. I'm having thoughts, but I don't really necessarily evaluate them, but I just go with them and hey, you know what? I'm okay. So thoughts are 100% natural to have, meaning that generally speaking, they keep us alive and well. I'll reference back to the line situation. If we saw the line, very naturally, we would say, okay, everything going on in my mind, we got to get out of here. So yeah, generally speaking, everything that they're doing keeps us alive and well. And then accepting them is the logical choice. Case in point, let's say that they did not keep us well. Well, then it would be logical to say, well, we better not trust those. But to have something that does keep us well and then we don't accept them, that would make you illogical, right? Oh, wow, these things are benefiting me. Oh, wait, these things are benefiting me. I'm not going to accept them. I'm not going to trust them, right? That would make you an irrational person to not trust something when that something has helped you out and has been, beneficial to you and, for your overall well-being. But in trading, yeah, again, not good. Now, where does the danger coming from? Well, again, the word natural is back, because a big part the danger comes from is that natural limitations in our thinking. So again, none of this is unnatural, and I want to just continue to hammer home and hopefully offer you up encouragement that it's not like any of the problems that you will come across, or maybe you already have come across, makes you some sort of moron. It doesn't make you some sort of crazy person. It's the exact opposite, because everything right now is natural. So a big part of the danger comes from natural limitations in our thinking in these forms here. So first off, they constrain the way we think, they distort the way we process information, and they negatively impact the way we make decisions. And the effect on our results as traders, not good, not good. So these natural things that in so many situations in life help us out when we step into the world of trading and investing, not good as far as our results are concerned. Now, what is the common name for these actual dangers? Because this is not all me talking in my opinion. This is all science. As you'll see here in a little bit, there's a field of study that covers all this stuff. But these are called heuristics and cognitive bias. Now, what do we naturally value as humans? And I realize I'm repeating myself, but I want you to understand. I want to encourage you and build you up that you're not stupid, you're not irrational, because everything that you're going to be tempted to do or that maybe you have already done, it's natural. It's how the brain is wired. But as a whole, naturally, we value time. So therefore, when we face complex, difficult decisions, whenever we come across them and they appear, we have to start to think about things. mainly we have to think about, well, how do we want to manage our time in this situation, which again, we do value our time. So what does our mind do? Our mind takes a shortcut. Now, heuristics, cognitive bias, they're just basically quick little rules where they allow you to take that shortcut and make the best decision possible regarding, now gives the best decision possible relative to a time management perspective. So that'll be very important as we go forward. So yes, it is the best decision relative to the point of I value my time. So what's going here? Well, this helps us to problem solve and make the decision. So these heuristics, it's cognitive bias within the general scope of saving time. How do we save time? Well, it gives us a very quick ability to problem solve and, like I said, just make the decision. So how so? Well, this makes us thinking more efficient and therefore more straightforward and manageable. So it's just a straight up efficiency process. If we can make our thinking more efficient, more straightforward, therefore it takes less time, therefore we are saving time. Now, why is this important and helpful? Well, it prevents this. By reducing the mental load of potentially overwhelming amounts of data, nobody wants to go crazy, right? Nobody wants to stress out. Nobody wants to feel these negative emotions. And yes, these negative emotions can be generated if there is a more complex situation, but do we really want to make it that complex? Do we really need to make it that complex? Probably not. We really don't. And we can just use this heuristic, use a cognitive bias, and by doing these, we just reduce the load on our mind and we just make the process of making that final decision that much quicker. So let's take a look at the quick rule in action. You are in unfamiliar territory. Never been here. Never been there in your life. And I should also note this, there's no internet, so you can't go like real quick, do something on your phone. None of that exists either. So which movie theater do you choose, right? I think it took you all of about 0.27 seconds to be like, okay, well, that is the movie theater I am choosing. Now, how did you choose? Did you go and did you interview people leaving and ask them to fill out surveys? Did you go to both locations? Okay, excuse me, sir, excuse me, ma'am. Could you fill out this survey about your experience in this movie theater? Did they show the right movie? How was it clean? How was the staff? What's going on? Just please, I need more details. I need more data from your experience. So by all means, could you please fill out this survey? Did you go and hire a structural engineer to run tests on the building safety? I mean, did you go and say, hey, you know what? Before I step in that building, can you do like a big analysis? Can you write me up a report? And can you provide all the mathematical data from your engineering perspective that supports or refutes the claim that one is more safe versus the other? Did you go and check with the local police for the crime report and statistics? Well, let me go first, figure out with the police chief, and let me dig through some crime statistics to figure out, if I go to one, do I have a higher chance of being mugged than the other? Will my kids be safe? Is it a good place for a date? I don't want to have to fight off 7 dudes because they're trying to get at my date. I'd rather just I'd like to have a nice, peaceful situation. Is that how you would choose in this situation? I'm assuming you're saying, well, no, Clay, in fact, this is all very ridiculous. This is very all dumb. In fact, I would argue, Clay, to which I would agree, that if you did do all these things, you probably have a mental issue. You probably would need to start to reassess how you're going about life, how you're going about situations. So my question then becomes, okay, well, then how did you choose? Well, you quickly looked in each building and saw the appearance of them. And then this is what your value judgment and decision was based on. Why? Well, because it was easier, mentally speaking, a much easier task compared to the alternative. The alternative being all those other things that I just mentioned, and all those other things would certainly create craziness, which we've already concluded that's what we're trying to do as humans, right? We're not trying to drive ourselves insane. Now, the problem with all this and the quick rule, again, those heuristics, those cognitive bias, is this. Yes, there is genuine value in managing our time within the real world. There's no doubt about it with that movie theater example. There's a whole bunch of value from a time management perspective and just using a heuristic, looking at the appearance, and then making a decision from there. And because of this, these become a very normal way of thinking, and it's just a default way of thinking because as we've established, yeah, in many situations, it's the smart thing. I guess you can't say the smart because who knows, maybe that nice one did have a bunch of crime and stuff like that. But again, from a mental shortcut perspective, it's a smart, it's an efficient way of thinking. But when it comes to just the world as a whole, doesn't always work all the time. Okay, so you got to keep that in mind, and that's one of my favorite movies right there. I still don't even know what that means. 60% of the time, it works every time. Talk about I don't know, let me know in the comment section. Do you have that one figured out? What does that even mean? In my mind, it fit here because yes, the quick rule, so many cases, it works out fantastic, but not all the time. So when the quick rule does fail, what is that doing? Well, that's going to lead to errors and lack of consistency in our judgments. So this does now lead to a logical question, which I'm assuming you're asking or thinking in one way or the other. Okay, well, what can trigger this quick rule fail leading to thinking errors? So what's going to trigger it? What's going to trigger something, and then this something causes the quick rule to fail, which again leads to not what we want. We don't want errors in our thinking. So this is where we have to figure out the decision-making. So decision-making environments, more specifically, containing these two elements, risk and uncertainty. So the risk and uncertainty environment, what does this look like? Well, how we think is, circular logic with our thoughts, and now we're gonna add in a certain environment. What is this environment? An environment filled with risk and uncertainty. So when this occurs, do we have careful and considerate rationality? Well, we don't, right? Because we've established that in so many other situations, and now all of a sudden this is being prompted that much more because there's risk and uncertainty. No, there's not careful and considerate rationality. Instead, we just go and use that quick rule of heuristic and cognitive bias. And when we do stuff like that in this sort of environment, again, this is why the environment is specific. Yeah, our thoughts start to get really, really sketchy, really, really moronic and stupid and irrational, okay? And the field of studying psychology is called behavioral finance. So like I said earlier, this is not me just making stuff up as I go. This is all based in the field of science, and you are by all means more than welcome to do more research in it. But at the core, behavioral science is the study of the influence of psychology on the behavior of investors or financial analysts or traders or what have you. It focuses on the fact that investors are not always rational, have limits, there's that word, to their self-control, and are influenced by their own biases. So what is the recipe for normal limitations? Like, how are we going to generate these limitations within our thinking? And we have, like any sort of good recipe, you're going to have an ingredients list. There's going to be multiple data points. There's going to be incomplete data, and there's going to be unknown outcomes. So let's correspond this with trading. Let's do a little, trading. And I realize I'm stating the obvious, but let's just keep on the same page. There's always risk in trading, right? Trading always involves risk. Outcomes are never known. And as a spoiler, I don't know if you're new, but if you think that their outcomes are known, well then that would mean that you think that there are guarantees. And I'm here to tell you there are no guarantees in the market. And also trading, it requires judgment of data. And what's going on with this data? Well, there are multiple data points, and the data is incomplete, right? Because that's what trading is about, is you're taking data, you're looking at data, you're trying to make judgments, but it's incomplete because you don't always know what's going on. Things are constantly changing. There's a lot of stuff going on, and this is all leading to two things: significant errors and costly mistakes. Now, this is the point of encouragement, and that's hopefully, if I've done my job right here, it's been an underlying theme here. But I want to encourage you, because let's think about this as we wrap things up here and recap. What so often benefits us in our day-to-day life, our heuristics, our cognitive biases. There's no denying that. Think back to that movie theater example. That was a quick way to save ourselves a whole bunch of time and therefore benefit us. So it does make you a rational person to use all of these things in your trading. In fact, it would make you irrational to not use it, right? Because as I said earlier, to have things that quote unquote work and then to all of a sudden not use those things that quote unquote work doesn't make any sense. That would make you illogical. So you're not irrational, you're not stupid, and you're not dumb. I know that's been the theme, but it's an important theme because I want to build you up. I want you to realize as we go through the rest of these classes that you're not some irrational fool. However, as we've established, in doing so, you place limitations on yourself, which in and of itself is the blind spot and why it exists and why it matters, because they're creating limitations. These limitations are then creating to the thinking errors and costly mistakes, but there is nothing wrong with you, okay? Just realize there is nothing wrong with you. So to reiterate one more time, you're not the problem. You're normal. You're not being irrational. Your mind is just behaving in very normal, very natural ways, which you've now learned is not so good when you enter into the environment of risk, uncertainty, which is what trading and investing is all about. So I look forward to going with you on this journey. If you enjoyed this video, if you're going to watch more, make sure to hit that like button, leave any questions down below. If you have any suggestions or anything, I'm all ears for that. So let me know on that, regard to things too. If you're new to the channel, then I'd love to have you as a subscriber. So check out the channel as a whole. But I appreciate you watching this class number 1 here with me. And I look forward, like I said, to going with you on the journey.